Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Lieutenant Josh Johnson back, and we're continuing our Fallen Fallout discussion. You've already seen the introduction video explaining Fallen Fallout at a macro level, and we just pulled our legacy data in video 2. Now we're going to pull our Deams data for Fallen. And because I explained before that we're looking at the individual transaction level, or STH perspective in Legacy, there's also the General Ledger Transactions, or STH-new report in Deams. This report can be simply found just by searching STH. There's two of them. The new has a few new headers that are convenient for research, so go ahead and do that, and then just expand it out. Click on GL Transactions, and we get into here. And if you haven't already seen our videos on Deams reports and Deams background and the Deams GL STH and explained in full detail all the way down, so go ahead and take a look at that under the Deams reports folder on the SharePoint site. It'll cover the preferences and making sure everything's done. I'm not going to go through all that now. I'm just going to go ahead and enter our parameters. Now, out there on the SharePoint site, you'll also find this notepad. And in the notepad, it will give you the parameters that are necessary for Fallen and Fallout. Something that's different about Deams than it was about Legacy. Legacy, we were worried about the Fallen and Fallout transactions that occurred after that year had changed with no address builds or lines of accounting or anything else. And all we were worried about is obligation level. Here we're worried about the same thing. We're worried about obligation level. And if you understand GLAX, you typically know that 4801 is your UOO, 4901 is your AEU, and 4902 is your AEP. However, there's several other series that also cover UOO, AEU, and AEP, and the one that people most often forget is this 4201. But basically, this list of GLAX is everything that you're going to need. So what we do is we just go in here and we want to make our GL data greater than October 2016. We want to make sure that our OE is put in there. For the fund, I'm only going to concern myself with the direct fund, so just put a % in D, so now you're working out of your direct, not your R fund. Main account, I'm going to do 3840 because I'm only looking at my O&M. If you needed to, just put a comma on 3400 or comma on 3850, or leave it blank, and it will pull everything. For fiscal year, I wanted the last 5 fiscal years for the expired appropriations, so I'm just going to put those in separated by comma. 12, comma 13, comma 14, comma 15, comma 16. All the way down. And then one thing to always make sure you're doing is make sure that you always put in your AAI 387700. Yes, you would think that Deams should only pull Deams, however, you will see 667100 in there. And now that notepad that I showed you before, if you bring that up and you just double click on that, you'll get all of those blocks right there. You just Control C for copy, and then go ahead and paste them in there. And then you just go ahead and run that data. And once that data runs, it's going to give us all of that information that we need to see. Alright, so now that our magic of time lapse has happened, and now we see that all of our criteria have run. Down here we'll see the beginning of the first 6 headers of a very extensive, 72 column report. The nice thing about Deams, and yes, I know you're probably laughing about the nice thing about Deams, but Deams has a lot of great features, and one of them is that the headers are standardized. What that means is that any of our data connections or data integration products are always the same regardless of who runs the report where. What you find in Legacy is that simple headers just such as EEC or EEC all 5 will create different data connections. So just go ahead and go up here to export, and we're going to export this as a very simple Microsoft Excel file. So once the drop down wants to cooperate, we're just going to export it as a Microsoft Excel workbook. Notice the .xls. That will come in handy here in just a second. And then you click export. And this may take just a second, depending on how much Fallen, Fallout, and how many transactions you have. But we're going to run that and then wait for the button to appear. Now that it's there, we're going to click to view and save. So we're just going to click that. You get a little dialog box that'll open up and it'll say, how do you want to do it? Well, we're going to save it as. And now that we save it as, there's a lot of different places that you can save it. I'm just going to make sure that I have it saved in my Fallen Fallout category, and I'm going to save it directly over the current existing folder. So I just go in and click save, and yes, I want to replace it. And now once that happens, you'll start to see it download down here. If for some reason it says that you can't do it and it says retry, don't do that. Just go ahead and click back up here on the report itself, rerun it, It will quickly refresh the screen and then try and export it one more time. So now that we've run it, just go ahead and click open because we have saved it first. And once it opens, it'll open over here off my screen, so I'll slide it over here in just a second to you. The first thing you're going to need to do is just enable the macros in the background. There'll be a dialog box that allows it to continue loading. And now once we bring it over here, you get this. Just go ahead and click Enable Content. What it's going to do is this Macro 1 column, the tab that you saw at the very bottom, that's going to run in the background, make it nice and pretty and format it. And now notice that macro is gone. So now that we've done that, we can just go ahead and save in the new formatting. But in order to make sure that file size always stays as small as possible with Deams reports, once you save it, go ahead and go to the File tab and just click on Convert. What this does is make it a macro Excel enabled workbook, and it drastically will reduce the file size. Notice I've already have it here. If this is the first time you've done this, it may not even ask you to save it again. It just might convert that file. That's fine. Next time you do it, save it and go from there. So now we just end up saving it. And do you want to replace? Yes. Now it's going to say, hey, we have new enhanced features. Do you want to open it again? If you want to see how quick it opens, just go ahead and click yes. Notice there's no big changes. Everything looks the same. So now what we've done is now we have our Deams export, and the STH is the same every time you run it, regardless of how you run it. The headers will be there. We'll have our amount, we'll have our other GL accounts. Remember, we limited those GL accounts that we wanted to see if they were applicable, and all of that data all the way across. And when we scroll through the reference 1, reference 2, reference 3, reference 4, reference 5, if you want more detailed breakdown on what is in here, when we look at our fallen and fallout, go ahead and go back and take a look at that Deams STH explained report. That's available on the SharePoint. It will spend about 11 to 15 minutes explaining those columns for you. So now that we have that data, we're just going to go ahead and close this out, and now in the next video we're going to import those data connections and begin building the analytic products. So thank you again, Lieutenant Josh Johnson. We'll talk to you soon.